All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new Civilian Arc podcast. This one is a lot different from something like um, what we do in Battlebots What If. Very different than it, because we got a main event tier list. Basically, what we'll be doing is that we'll be talking about each of the main events, describing what we like or dislike about them, stuff like that. So yeah, joining me in this one is Spin Doctor. I don't know if Corey or Green or Oblivion or anyone else will show up. Maybe they'll show up later in this, but for now it's just me and Spin. So how you doing, Spin?
I am doing great. I just watched episode 2 of season 6 yesterday. I
Nice.
really liked it.
Yeah, it had some good fights. Rotator versus Kraken was amazing.
Fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sad to see Kraken get destroyed like that, but they did Mohawk better than Mohawk, so that's all I have to say.
Yeah. So basically what we'll be doing is like I said, talking about the main events. We have a couple of tiers here. We have the regular tiers, like what would you have, but made some shit posty titles for them, like keeping it 55th Street for S tier, David Stern seal of approval for A tier, my grade average for B tier, judging consistency for C tier, just a plead face emoji for D tier, and Robot Rumble 2 for F tier. So, and we also have two other tiers, which is the best tier and the worst tier. Basically, if we go into a main event that we feel is better than any of the better or worse than any of the main events we've talked about prior to that main event, it will be on this tier, but it can be replaced at any point. So, yeah. So, yeah, first main event we get to, we have Tombstone versus Minotaur. This was the first ever main event ever. First ever episode we got to see Discovery in action. And god damn, it put out some banger fights in Discovery's premiere. And Tombstone versus Minotaur was exactly that. So what are your thoughts on this fight, Spin?
I mean, I think this just slides right automatically into best tier. This is considered to
Yeah.
be one of the greatest main events of all time. This is also just really the prime example of what the fight card format can do, because you have these two bots that probably would have only met in the finals or semifinals.
Right.
They almost met in the finals last year if Bombshell didn't get unlucky. But we finally got to see them fight, and it was a spectacular fight. You have Tombstone ripping up the floor, Minotaur taking hits like a champ, and then I mean, it's the way it ended was not as satisfying as if it was just like a straight up KO or
Yeah.
judge's decision.
Yeah, that's
I
the
mean, yeah,
only that's the only part of the fight I don't like is just the way it ended with Minotaur getting caught up on the floor. But other than that, this is an amazing fight. So, yeah. And as been said, this did show how good the fight card format was because you could this basically opened up the door for all potential matchups that didn't necessarily need to happen in postseason. So, yeah, so I'm guessing you yeah, so, this is
yeah, just slides right in there, like just by default. It's
yeah,
really gonna be hard to repeat it, honestly.
yeah. So, next main event we got Yeti versus Witch Doctor. Yeti was a very surprise semifinalist in the 2016, which gave it a lot of just a lot of people had hopes for Yeti going into 2018, and yeah, this Yeti opening fight really proved that Yeti was still able to kick some butt, as this fight was fairly close at first, but once Witch Doctor used its ribcage as a weapon for whatever unknown reason, Yeti kind of just tore apart Witch Doctor. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on this one?
I mean, I think Witch Doctor being a front hinge flipper is funny. It just,
Yeah,
it just, yeah, but it just wasn't as captivating to me as other fights. I still really liked it. There's still a bit of destruction, and oh,
Mantine's here.
cool, yay!
Hello,
Um,
boys.
yeah,
So, yes, this is Mantine's first podcast on my channel. If you want to see Mantine in another podcast, go check out Green's podcast. So, yeah, how are you doing, Mantine?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
We're doing well. We're talking about main events and the tier list for them. We're on Yeti versus Witch Doctor now, so you didn't miss much.
All right. Cool, cool.
Yeah, what were you saying, Spin?
I would slide this like into C. It was good. I liked seeing these two bots that like were surprisingly good get to fight each other, but I just wasn't as captivating as other fights in my opinion.
Yeah, where would you put this fight, man? Team, what are your thoughts on
Uh,
this
I,
fight?
I mean, you know, it was definitely a good fight, but it was a little underwhelming in how it ended, I think. I mean, it was good to see two of the most, exciting vertical spinners in the sport have a go at it, but I feel like it could have lived up to a lot more if reliability issues hadn't struck. Am
Right.
I allowed to say? Or I'm sure it's not a spoiler by now, but yeah, if Witch Doctor wasn't as unreliable as it was in that fight, I feel like it could have been a great one.
What tier would you put this at?
I'd say it's say C to D.
I'd personally say B, but it seems it's been ruled for C. But for now, we're putting it in worst tier until we get to main event we find worse than Witch Doctor versus Yeti, which I'm pretty sure this one would be worse than Witch Doctor versus Yeti. We got Bite Force versus Hypershock Part 2. Now, this was a huge rematch as Bite Force Hypershock almost pulled out the biggest upset possible. Well, not the biggest upset possible, but a huge upset going into it. And yeah, almost got it, but unfortunately shorted out in like the last 40 seconds or something. So yeah, this was Hypershock's chance to prove that it could take out Bite Force, and not even like 10 seconds in, Bite Force's batteries got ripped out. So what are your guys' thoughts on this fight?
it was not that good. I mean, you have Hypershock strafing for a little bit, but it just ended too quickly. There's no fight. It was just they just make contact and suddenly Hypershock's guts are just everywhere, and that's just it.
Yeah,
This is an F tier fight. I'm gonna be real with you. I mean, there's only so much you can do considering it's Bite Force, the cream of the crop, but
true.
it just wasn't even a fight. It was like a Mike Tyson fight. You hit him once
Yeah,
and he's gone.
yeah. Uh, Spin. We heard what Mantine's tier would be. What do you think this tier should be?
Uh, is triple F an option?
Sure. Damn. Yeah. I personally, the only reason I wouldn't give it an F is just because that hit in and of itself is just good, just barely good enough for me to say D, because that was probably like the second best hit of the entire season, besides like Ice Wave ripping two parts in half, two bots in half. Yeah, those were two insane shots by Ice Wave against Vanquish and Huge. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that we all agree that it should replace Yeti versus Witch Doctor as worst tier. So yeah,
Wait, hold on. I take a little problem with what you said, it being like the second best hit of the thing. I think when you consider best hit, I feel like taking account the quality of the bot that was getting hit, or like the quality at the time, should be considered because it's one thing just to destroy a bot that had like no chance, no welding whatsoever, but it's
that's
another thing
fair.
to get like a really massive hit on a bot that was performing pretty well at the time.
That's fair. I see where you're going with that. Like, yeah, okay, I got you. Um, yeah. So now we go into Tombstone versus Gigabyte. This was going to be a huge fight as Gigabyte and Mantine's pissed. And since Gigabyte's older brother, I think it was Super Megabyte, was it, that took out Tombstone, knocked it out.
Yeah.
So Gigabyte had a lot riding on this fight. And then there was a few decent shots at the beginning, but after about like, what was it, like 45 seconds, the shell came off of Gigabyte in the most hilarious way possible. So what are your guys' thoughts on this?
China.
I mean, oh,
What did you just say, Mantine?
China. That's all.
Oh, China.
That's my statement.
What
okay. Uh, So I think this fight is a little bit more of a spectacle than Bite Force versus Hypershock, which is why I would put it over. I mean, there's a bit more actual fighting because like they do make a couple of hits. I think Gigabyte got under Tombstone. I think tapped the wheel a little bit earlier, but and then it just all went downhill once Tombstone got one big hit. They used it. I think they had like Chinese parts that malfunction or just not properly manufactured, and that's what like killed it. That's what killed the shell, and it
Yeah,
killed the shell later in season 5. Why they didn't trash it, I don't know. But it just the fight was just cut off way too soon. I
yeah.
put it in like D.
I think it would. I think this fight would have been just better if it was like not a quote unquote rematch like what it was, since like Gigabyte, well, not Gigabyte itself, but like the Gigabyte team has like fucked Tombstone up before. So if it wasn't a main event like this, I'd say just like, oh yeah, this is a fine fight, but yeah, this is just not great because it's a main event. So what tier did you think it should be at, Mantine and Spin?
I said D.
Oh,
There's
okay.
some there's some cool stuff in it. They did fight a little bit, but it wasn't as like a strong fight, you know.
Okay.
Worst fight on this list, actual scam.
So you think it should be an F?
Absolutely.
Oh wait, you're saying it should be worst tier also, aren't you?
Yes. Yes. Just for the rest of the rest of the podcast, it's just gonna stay there. It's awful. It was bad.
I mean, it wasn't boring like some other ones. It just wasn't as It just wasn't as spectacular. I will say the way it concluded was not as uh fun. It wasn't as like as impressive as Hypershock versus Bite Force because Hypershock didn't die. All right, Gigabyte didn't die. It just stopped moving because it didn't want to lose everything. But
Yeah,
it was when you see a naked Gigabyte just like run around and like them trying to just
yeah. The
was it
tap out
self
thing. They were trying to tap out.
yeah, yeah. I think that was fun to see. Just that wasn't part of the fight though.
Yeah,
The tapping out part.
yeah. I do agree with Spin probably that it should be a D tier, but you know what? I'm gonna change the D tier shitpost title from plead face emoji to China.
I think that's fair. That's very fair.
Yeah. All right. Next fight, we got the Battle of the Cold Bots, as we got Yeti and Icewave who took on each other. Bit of controversy in this fight as Icewave got a quote unquote late hit on Yeti when Yeti got counted out. Some decent shots thrown at it, but after that, Yeti kind of just pissed itself. So, what are your guys' thoughts on this fight?
That's a dick move, Mark. Yeah, it's probably like a fat C tier. I'd probably, looking back on it now, seeing that this is a C tier, I'd probably put Yeti with Shocker in like a B instead. But this feels like a C tier. Like a Yeti was doing well, and then it just died. And I
Yeah.
feel like it was definitely better than Tombstone Gigabyte, and it was definitely better than Hypershock Bite Force. Not like that much better.
You know, I have some strong no, not strong, just some opinions on this. I would put it in F because there's no real spectacle like in Bite Force versus Hypershock. There's just some love taps and then Yeti died. Like it was cool seeing them fight a little bit, make contact. Yeti's wedge was fun. It was good to see. It's nice to know that it has a wedge configuration, just in case faces it horizontal. But we just didn't get to see much, you know. At least with Hypershock versus Bite Force, you get that one cool hit. At least with Tombstone versus Gigabyte, you get that deshelling and naked Gigabyte running around. This one, you get was a really annoying controversy in my opinion because I think it was an accident at least,
Yeah,
and
I
like
think it was an accident, at least
yeah,
from Mark's
I mean, I see.
perspective.
I understand Greg's point of view in that
Yeah,
don't attack. He's dead. But it was clearly an accident, and that's just a really annoying controversy in my opinion because it was a mistake. They probably moved on from it, but
no,
like
they
I
did,
think
they did.
yeah, like Mark DeVitt's probably got a lot of shit for that. So
Yeah, I think I
even though it
think
was a complete accident.
I think Greg forgave him like right after they brought the bots back into the pits. So like, yeah, Because according to Greg's post on Instagram after that fight, it sounded like him and Mark were close friends. So yeah, I think Greg did forgive him.
I remember there's an Reddit post saying, "Did Mark DeVitz ever buy Yeti new wheels?" Something like that.
So okay, so Mantine thinks this should be C. Spin. Do you think this should be worst tier? I want to hear your.
I think it should be worse tier because there's no spectacle and there's not much of a fight either. Just randomly stopped, and there's a really annoying controversy.
Personally, in my opinion, this fight is probably top 5 worst main events in my opinion, but it's probably at the top list, so it's not like the absolute worst in my opinion. I don't think this is worse than Bite Force versus Hypershock, and I feel like this fight does deserve D just because Yeti got like 1-6 shot, but other than that, I don't think that this is like that great of a fight. It's nothing good, nothing great, so yeah. So yeah, next up we got Broncos' very late entry into the 2018 season as it took on Bombshell Episode 6 for its first fight. Bombshell is already at 0-1, so it kind of had to make up some points, but yeah, Bronco got an Uda, which, those are always fun. Hey, where the fuck is Oblivion at? Come on, man. But yeah, what's your guys' opinion on this fight?
Uh, Bombshell runs for its life for about a minute, then gets flipped, and dies. It's like an F tier, but still better than still better than Bite Force Hypershock. That's about it.
I mean, I want to reiterate my other problem. Like, this was not that good of a fight, and at least Hypershock versus Bite Force got a lot more spectacle. But I will say it's more fun to see Bombshell running for its life and it getting flipped in the air like it did. So I would put it in F, but not worst.
I don't remember Bombshell running. I'm pretty sure it got like a few decent shots on and got under Bronco, but maybe I need to rewatch the fight because I'm pretty sure Bombshell was winning up until that point it got cornered, I think.
Oh yeah, that's right. Bombshell was a decent bot until something went wrong. Either it got flipped or its weapon just died.
Shout out to Bombshell, man.
Bombshell decent bot. I don't know about that, but I mean, maybe.
Oh,
maybe.
speaking of Bombshell, I just forgot we don't have Last Chance Rumble in this tier list.
That doesn't deserve to be on here. That was a national tragedy.
It was a good bout. It's just
It was
that one controversy.
Yeah. Okay, so you guys say it should be F, right? Guys, you said this should be F?
I think so.
Actually, on second thought, I think I bumped it up to a D because
Okay.
Bombshell kind of winning, kind of doing okay is pretty funny in retrospect.
That is true. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one a D as well. I don't think it's absolutely fucking terrible, but it's nothing great either. I feel like I feel like most of the Discovery main season, I feel like most of the 2018 main events post Minotaur, Tombstone, and pre Desperado tournament are all just like not anything special. So yeah, D tier. So next up, we got the 3-time champ Bite Force versus the 2020 champ Endgame. And yeah, Endgame called out Tombstone and got Bite Force. Imagine calling out a champ and getting the wrong champ.
That he did. Yeah.
Well, what was your guys' thoughts on this fight?
I mean, Endgame just. So from what I remember, it was just like they met in the center. Endgame like hit him once and then bounced away from Bite Force, but Bite Force just kind of died for like 30 seconds and then didn't get counted out and came back to life. And then Endgame promptly died. Yeah. And then as soon as Bifrost came back to life, it just kind of like knocked him up, and it was over.
Yeah.
So that's like a
If,
D or F.
if I recall correctly, I think Endgame spun its weapon down because I thought they killed Bite Force, but then just
Yeah,
spun back to life.
Yeah. So, yeah, what's your thoughts on this one, Spin?
I also say D to F. I mean, it was uh, it was fun to see it. If I'm being honest, um, it just wasn't that stand out, but it wasn't horrible.
Yeah, I think I changed my mind about saying that Ice Wave versus Ice Wave versus Yeti is in my top 5. I'm pretty sure I'd rather replace Bite Force versus Endgame than Yeti versus Witch Doctor than Endgame versus Bite Force. Or what the fuck am I saying? I feel like Bite Force versus Endgame is worse than Yeti versus Witch Doctor is what I'm saying. So yeah. So personally, I'd give this a D because I mean I don't know actually. This could actually deserve an F now that I think about it, because Bite Force just randomly dying is kind of bad.
I think it's kind of bad that they gave Endgame like the former champ after beating Captain Shredder, who was unreliable that season, and beating Lockjaw, who got stuck on the screws. I mean,
True.
kill saws.
Yeah,
True.
So I don't understand why they did that to him. Give him a harder challenge, but not the champion or
that's
former
true.
champ.
Christ, I don't know, guys. What do you think this should be, D or F? I don't know.
F. Fat F.
Yeah, sure. F.
Okay, I
Bite
don't.
Force dying is kind of an F for me.
Yeah, I don't think this is worse than Hypershock versus Bite Force, but this
It's
definitely
not.
is a bad main event. But yeah. Next up, we got Bronco versus Lockjaw. Now, this is an interesting
Ooh.
one. As well, most of the main events we've covered here have been mostly like one hit wonders or shit like that. This fight went up to the judges, and it was one of the most. It started out so pathetically. I remember laughing so hard that neither bots could get a hit on each other in the like first 30 seconds or something. So, what are your guys' thoughts on this?
The pathetic start like kind of just buries it into me because like I really did not like this fight because like you have two bots just struggling to move. I mean, on paper, Bronco versus Lockjaw is a great fight. Bronco flipping Lockjaw around is good. I mean, and then you also have like sorry, I'm blanking on my own opinion. Mantine, can you go?
Yeah, I got you. I got you. So this is a classic cripple fight, right? It's like it's two disabled robots trying to trying to fight each other. And it's just not a good fight. I mean, it's like it's better than it's a D tier. It's a D tier fight, not an
Yeah.
F tier. Bronco got some good flips in, but it was a cripple fight. You can only do so well with a cripple fight.
I will give it. I would say C tier. So Bronco and Lockjaw just weren't up to standard. They weren't as good as they usually are, or even like decent. Like Bronco was struggling so hard in the early parts, and Lockjaw was also struggling so hard. Like the first part of the fight, both bots were just so struggling to even fight. And then Bronco did get some good flips in. It just Lockjaw not working, we just wasn't able to make it much of a fight. You know.
Yeah.
I think
I
of
would say
this
C
as a
tier
C
because it is more
tier.
entertaining than the one hit wonders. I'm happy they went to the judges for once. Like I'm happy they didn't go with a one hit wonder fight for the main event again. I just wish it was more of a. I mean, there's a lot of spectacle in Bronco flipping. I just wish it was more of a fight, especially
Yeah.
given that these are legends, you know, and
Yeah.
Lonzo and Bronco are actually good this season.
So, Spin, you said C. Mantine, it sounded like you were changing your opinion to C.
If I was gonna say, if you put this in C, I think that Witch Doctor and Yeti should be moved up to B.
Personally, I think this is a D tier fight just because Lockjaw only got like one hit in it. And I'm more of a fan of like two-sided fights, but this was like pretty much a cripple fight that was all Bronco as
Yeah,
Mantine stated. So yeah, I'm gonna go D tier for this. Probably
I agree.
probably the best of the four D tiers we've covered so far, but nothing great. But we got another judge's decision main event, Ice Wave versus Scorpios, that caused some controversy. So yeah, this was a fun fight in my opinion. Had some good driving tactics from Orion Beach, some killer shots by Ice Wave. So yeah, what are your guys' opinion on this?
Woo! Finally, a good fight since Minotaur versus Tombstone.
Yeah.
I put this in like somewhere between A B. I like driving matches. I like seeing one bot try to control another bot. I like seeing destructive bots too. You put a control bot and a destructive bot in the arena, and they kind of just did their thing. Ice Wave tore Scorpius to tore not I won't say to bits, but tore it up a lot and took out its weapon. And Scorpios controlled Ice Wave. Ice Wave couldn't really do much, so I would put it in A personally, but I could see an argument for B. Probably not anything lower than a C though.
Mantine, what you got?
I think this is a B-tier fight. You know, it was good. It wasn't really back and forth, but it was a really masterclass driving match from Scorpios. You know, I mean, I feel like Scorpios' driving ability was very impressive. And even though it wasn't exactly a two-sided fight, which I, similar to you, Civ, think are the better fights, ones that are two-sided,
Yeah.
I still think it's a B-tier fight. You know, it's a lot better than anything we've seen, barring maybe Witch Doctor and Yeti, but even then it's a little better than that. So I'd say B-tier.
Personally, I'd say this is probably my favorite main event since Minotaur Tombstone. But and personally, when I first watched it, I was like, "That's an S tier fight." But looking back at it, I don't think it's S tier exactly. But I do think it's a solid A tier main event in my opinion. So yeah. So yeah. Oh, not S. So
Mm.
yeah. Next up, we got another one-sided Bronco fight. Holy shit! Who would have thought? Uh, we got Bronco versus Duck. Duck, a freaking lifter, taking on the most powerful flipper in 2018. What a tense main event.
Okay, hear me out. I say B tier, okay? Okay, hear me out.
Okay.
Hear
Okay.
me out. Hear me out, okay? Duck doing decent against Bronco for a little bit was funny to see looking back,
It
especially
didn't. It didn't do well.
it was doing okay until Bronco started doing stuff, okay?
Until
Yeah,
Broncos started like
still,
trying.
until Broncos thought that, oh shit, I'm actually fighting a bot that isn't a piece of shit.
This is like a C-tier fight, baby.
Okay, but like I
It was
do
just
think it's fun to see just Duck just flying around, being sent through the air by Bronco. Like it's not just it's like a one flip and it's done, or it's not like both bots are
Yeah,
crippled.
this is
Both
definitely the
are
best
working fine.
Bronco
You
main
can
event we've covered so far, in my opinion. I will give it spin credit on that.
it's the best C-tier fight, but it is a C-tier fight.
I think Bronco toastering Duck just flying
Yeah,
around,
yeah,
Duck doing okay until Bronco started doing stuff. It's just really fun.
Yeti
Like
and Witch Doctor was a better
it's
fight than
not
this. You
mid tier for
can't give
sure.
this B and put that in C. No.
I
No, but the thing is, like Yeti versus Witch Doctor was kind of there's some disappointment because Witch Doctor did not put up a good fight. Duck didn't put up a good fight, but he did not expect it to put up a good
I
fight.
mean,
You
but
know?
like, it wasn't that Witch Doctor was just doing badly. I like just watched the fight again because I forgot about like how it went. But it was a good driving from Yeti. It was just Yeti. It was good to see Yeti dominate a fight, like, and have a little bit of opposition, unlike Bronco, who had to fight a lifter.
I mean, but there's some spectacle in it. I mean, you're seeing just this cube of steel being thrown 22 feet in the air or something like that, and just getting thrown in the toaster slot like a
okay.
piece of toast.
Here's my opinion on this. I do think that this is the best Bronco main event we've covered so far,
Mhm.
but I feel like this was just too one-sided for my taste. Because, like, let's be honest here. Duck only had, like, one good moment. Also, I remember Duck created a spark ramming Bronco, which was kind of funny. But other than that, I mean, this was kind of all Bronco. So I feel like this is like a C plus main event in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like you go into that fight, it's like, oh, who's gonna win, Bronco or Duck? Who knows? Could be anybody.
Yeah, like
Like,
it's pretty clear who's gonna win this.
yeah.
So, bro, where's Oblivion? He needs to he needs to we need him to say why every Bronco fight should be an S tier. Yeah, so next up we got Tombstone versus Whiplash, and this was some phenomenal driving on Matt Vasquez's part. He's getting some great shots on Tombstone, but ultimately Whiplash kind of just killed itself, ramming into Tombstone's blade too many times and finally just dying. So yeah, what's your guys' thoughts on this fight?
A tier. Great fight.
I
There's
agree.
nothing wrong with it.
What was that, Spin?
I agree. I A tier. It's I love a good driving bout. I love it when a control bot does its thing, controls destructive bots. But I also love it more when a destructive bot overpowers the control bot and starts winning the fight over time.
Yeah.
Whiplash is just so impressive in this fight, but Tombstone just tearing it apart was just also just adding on to that and so fun. I say A tier.
Yeah, Tombstone Whiplash was like a damn RA2 fight. Like you're winning for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and then you just start falling apart with like 30 seconds to go.
Yeah. So yeah, I personally agree with you guys. This is definitely an A tier main event. Solid driving, solid control, solid aggression, solid damage. Great fight overall. So yeah, I think A tier is a respectable choice. So yeah. So next up we got um the first ever Fight Night rematch, I think. No, Bite Force versus Hypershock came before. So yeah. But yeah, this one was quote unquote the most viewed BattleBots fight ever, which is incorrect since it's Beta versus Lucky. So they couldn't even get that right. Good job, Discovery. But but yeah, I think it's safer all of us to say this fight isn't even it probably isn't as good as the original.
I mean, it was more two-sided than the original. Blacksmith actually started doing stuff, controlling a little bit, instead of just getting instantly wrecked like it did
Well, I
originally.
mean, Blacksmith was in control of the fight at the beginning of the original too.
I mean, yeah, it just didn't really do as much in the original. Like, it did more in the new one. Like, it did more hammer stuff, did a little more control. In the original, it kind of just pushed it around and then got tasered.
Yeah.
Mantine, what do you got for this fight?
C tier. I mean, it's one of those fights where like it's better than any of the Bronco fights because Blacksmith at least put up some sort of resistance, unlike Duck or Lockjaw. It's still not a great. I mean, people talk about Minotaur and Blacksmith a lot as being one of the classic fights, but I never really saw it because it was more like a Blacksmith surviving. I don't really
Yeah,
consider that a classic like other
like
people
I
do.
consider Lockjaw versus Yeti more of a classic than Minotaur versus Blacksmith, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Yeah.
I mean, I think Lockjaw versus Yeti is a better fight overall. I just think Bite Force, I'm not Bite Force, Blacksmith versus Minotaur is just a more attractive fight, you know? Like, I would much rather watch Yeti versus Lockjaw, of course. But if I were to.
If you were to introduce, fuck, I can't talk. If you were to introduce your friend to BattleBots, you probably would have them watch Minotaur versus Blacksmith.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I got interrupted by something. But yeah, yeah, it's just more of a spectacle, you know. It's just more interesting to see something get wrecked than it is to see even bout to like a new people or just a general audience, you know.
Right, yeah. So what tier do you think this should be, Spin? Since I don't think we heard from you on which tier this should be.
I I'm thinking low B or high C.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just gonna give this tough love since this is a rematch, and I tend to give rematches crap. So I'm gonna go C tier. But yeah, now we got the fight that is probably better than all three Bronco main events combined. We got Bronco versus Sawblaze, and hot damn, those first three flips were amazing. As you Bronco flipping Sawblaze, denting the wall a couple times. It was fun to see. So what's your guys' thoughts on this main event?
Can't let me look at this fight again real quick. It's been you talk about it. I'm gonna rewatch the fight right now. I will near.
Yeah, I mean it's all right. It's a really one-sided fight, but it's not as much of a spectacle as is Duck versus Bronco. Cause like it was just mainly just Bronco just controlling Sawblaze and Sawblaze not being able to do anything because that's inferior ground game. I mean, it is more two-sided because Sawblaze actually got a good saw. I think like it did get under Bronco and did saw, but it just didn't really do anything. It wasn't really destructive at the time. It was just a bunch of pretty sparks and Sawblaze being mildly flipped around. Nothing really impressive. I put it in C tier,
Yeah,
below Duck, below Duck versus Bronco.
interesting. Personally, I do like this fight just because I feel like while Duck versus Bronco was more like spectacle with like how high Duck got flipped, I feel like just seeing Bronco flipping Sawblaze to the Lexan like the first five flips were just like more impactful to me because like you see Bronco throwing Sawblaze right at Jameson Go, you're like, holy shit, Bronco's just trying to taunt him. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from on this spin. Mantine, do you have anything?
It's a C tier fight. It's better than all the other Broncos. Like a C plus.
Personally, I'd give this a B, but I've been outvoted, so yeah. And now we're going to the next Sawblaze main event where we have Endgame versus Sawblaze, which is a bullshit decision. Uh but yeah, Sawblaze versus Endgame was a fight to see who was better between USA and the world, as Robot Wars isn't good at doing that. So yeah,
True.
what's your guys' thoughts on this fight?
Saw Blaze versus Endgame.
Are you rewatching that fight too?
Yeah. It's been a while, man.
Spin, what do you got?
Can we take a 3-minute intermission to rewatch this fight?
Yeah, we can do that. We're all just looking it up on Facebook to see the fight again.
Yes.
Joke's on you, I have Discovery Plus.
Oh,
That's a
good
flex.
Mr.
That's a flex and a half.
Fancy Guy.
He's flexing at us. I don't like that.
Okay, so I've seen enough to form an opinion. I didn't completely finish the fight, but I do have some opinions. I would put this in A or B tier. So I'm gonna say I agree with the decision. I would give control to Sawblaze. I'd give damage. I don't know. I'd maybe split it. I guess. I would give aggression to Sawblaze and strategy to Sawblaze. Honestly, maybe give control at endgame. I guess. But I think Sawblaze is just a really high octane bot. It's so fun to see it maneuver and control and just be aggressive and do his thing. I would give it A for that. But like it just wasn't as spectacle. It wasn't as amazing. It just wasn't very much. It was just kind of Sawblaze driving around endgame and endgame kind of being defensive and reacting to the controlling and attacking of it.
Yeah.
I agree with the decision though.
Mantine, what do you got on this fight? If you've watched enough of it.
Well, from my professional opinion, it looks like in-game being an unreliable piece of shit, and Sawblaze attempting to get under it but failing because it wheelies. So
Also, the middle fork is bent.
Yeah,
It
the middle
is.
fork is Ben.
Sawblaze runs it in game for 3 minutes, and I don't think it got under it once. It was it was a C tier fight. I cannot put it any higher than C. That was miserable.
Personally, I feel like the beginning of the fight is probably like A tier, but once the like last minute of the fight happens, it's like leaning towards like a mid C. So I think I'll just go middle of the pack and go B tier I feel like if we do that, that's a 3-way tie because I think Spin voted A, and and Mantine went C.
Yeah,
So
fair.
if there's what
Okay. Did Endgame die in like the last like 5 seconds? It's
Yes.
just
did,
not moving
yes,
over the kill.
yeah,
It went
did.
full Surgeon General. It ran over the kill saws and broke down.
Yeah, shout out to Surgeon
Yeah, okay.
General.
Shout out Surgeon General. That's
Give
true.
the damage to Sawblaze then. That's all I'm saying.
Based.
All right, so next up, we got the fight that pissed me off extremely because, let's be honest, Minotaur had no reason to fight Sub-Zero or Hypothermia or even Blacksmith, and it got 3 of those bots, and then they decide for Minotaur's last fight to be Sub-Zero for whatever reason. I don't know why. So, yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on this?
I'm pretty sure Minotaur versus Sub-Zero was like a backup main event because the original one kind of sucked. I don't remember what the original main event was. I think it was like some Warrior Clan one or something like that. Why Warrior Clan was in the main event, I don't know.
I think it would have been like, I don't know what it would have been.
Would it be like Rotator versus Warrior Clan or like Warrior Clan versus Warhead or something like that?
I think it might have been because Warrior Clan versus Warhead, because Warhead was technically undefeated at this point in, but Warhead would be in 2 fights in that fight card, so I don't know. I don't know. We gotta ask Corey. He's the one who he's the one who deep dives this shit. Where is he?
How can we summon Pori?
Yeah, Mantine, you're the new Corey now.
Hello. All right, let me check.
You have to simp for Ribot now.
Oh, that's disgusting.
I think I'm the biggest Ribot simp of the 3 of us. I wouldn't put it in my top 4 most likely to win this season. If I'm
You're not Pori levels yet.
You
I'll
haven't
get there
gone
one day.
full bore. You'll get there eventually. It's fine.
Yeah. You'll
Let's
either
see. Free shipping Warhawk, Minotaur Sub-Zero, Warhead Warrior Dragon is on this card.
I thought Warhead Whiplash was on.
Or no, wait, that's 214. What? Okay, where did? All right, hold on. I'm gonna go into the dive now.
While you go on the dive spin, what's your thought on this fight?
Was it really a fight though? Is what I'm saying. I mean, I think the problem with this fight is that it's not a main event. It's Sub-Zero. Like maybe season 5 Sub-Zero could be a main event.
Yeah.
But season 3 Sub-Zero was garbage. The only thing it has is that it was armored well, but against Minotaur and the fact that it has such a weak weapon is not good.
Considering it's essentially an 0-4 bot, since it pretty much got bodied to Captain Shredderator until Captain Shredderator pulled a Captain Shredderator. This isn't worth being a main event. I feel like Warhawk versus. I feel like if free shipping had a better had like a 2-1 record going in, they could have made Warhawk and free shipping the main event.
I think there being a Minotaur should not just be making it automatically main event. I think
Right.
Sub-Zero being a veteran could play into that, but like it just wasn't enough to be a main event. I would much rather have free shipping versus Warhack be a main event because you have free shipping a Robo Games legend,
Yeah, Robo
like
Games
most wins of
legend.
any bot ever, and you have Warhawk. I think veteran, also at the time undefeated. I think.
No, it was 2-1. It lost to Brutus.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Maybe not. I guess, but it's at least more interesting. You have a flail. It's like a fun fight. But like this one is just you just have Sub-Zero being sent to the slaughter, like for no reason other than Minotaur's 1 and 2 and needs to be 3 and 1.
Here we go. I've got it.
I have stronger feelings for this one, like hating this one than Hypershock versus Bite Force, because at least Hypershock versus Bite Force made sense. At least there was more like a more interesting spectacle other than one bot getting brutally massacred. That's because it was just way out of its league.
Yeah.
So, I think the original main event was Whiplash Warhead. It was either that or Overhaul Witch Doctor, which I don't think
that would make sense probably.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd say this fight is D tier. Don't at me.
This fight is like Minotaur Blacksmith at home. Like it's just Sub-Zero surviving, but worse than Blacksmith. So it's like a D tier.
Yeah. All right. So
I voted in for worse personally, but I guess I'm outnumbered.
Ooh, that's a hot take.
It's not the worst, but
okay. So we end the 2018 season, and now we go into the 2019 season. Overall, 2018 main events were kind of weak overall, as most of these fights were range from C to F. And the only ones that got a good grade are Tombstone versus Minotaur, Icewave versus Scorpio, Whiplash versus Tombstone, and Endgame versus Sawblaze. Which you could debate Endgame versus Sawblaze being C tier, probably. So I mean, there's only like 3 actually like great main events this season. Hopefully 2019 is better, so we'll see. So first one, we got Tombstone versus Lockjaw. I was almost right about predicting this main event until Tombstone did that stupid strat that worked.
Stupid strat. It worked. It did. That strat beat one of the best drivers in the sport. It beat one of the best plows in the sport. What do you mean stupid strat? It's a genius strategy.
If Donald didn't fall for the strat, he would have won.
But he did fall for the strat.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I won't call it stupid, but I'll call it cheap.
Cheap.
I mean, it is smart because one of the biggest criticisms about Tombstone that's super dumb is the exposed wheels. It's using that stupid criticism to its advantage. Oh, look at me, my wheels are out in the open. You should go get them, and then just zips around, and then now their wheels are gone.
Yeah. Mantine, you said this should be a C, right?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. It should be C.
Yeah, I feel like this should. I feel like this is probably C tier. So yeah, and now we got this fucking fight. This is, in my opinion, at least in terms of hype standpoint, the worst main event ever. Because you have 2 bots that made top 4, and neither spinner was working. Whiplash's lifter was working in the first half and then stopped in the second half. I think this should be worst tier.
Zam.
What do you guys got on this fight?
F tier.
I mean, I'd say F tier. I mean, I like good driving bouts. Seeing Whiplash just do something was better than just Hypershock just going in and spilling all its guts everywhere unprompted. I mean, it just really sucks that both their weapons died. At least Whiplash's weapon worked for a little bit before dying. The weapon being the lifter, not the spinner.
Mantine, do you think this should be worst tier or no?
Fat F tier, not worst, but it is an F tier for sure.
Yeah.
Horrible
Fuck.
fight.
I really hate. And here's the thing that Oblivion and Porreach and even Green tried to tell me that this was more of a driving fight, and it's fun to see a driving fight. I don't really think this is a driving fight necessarily. I think this is just like a
No.
push fest because I feel like a driving fight would require some level of tactics with, like, say, your weapons and stuff. And neither had their weapon. Whiplash had its lifter, but not for the entire fight. And Minotaur didn't even have its weapon. So, I mean, the only good thing I'll say about this fight is that I got money out of it. That's literally the only good thing I'll say about this fight.
Nice.
I think Hydra versus Endgame is probably more hype, if I'm being honest, and more disappointing.
Well, I mean, at least Hydra got there was like one good moment in that fight. There was nothing good to say. There was no good moments in Whiplash Minotaur.
I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, as if you were just picking out which is the better fight, I mean, Hydra versus Endgame, I guess. But in terms of being disappointing, I said this before, but for Hydra's first loss in the fight night, it sucked. It didn't really lose. Its flipper died and it just did nothing after that. It wedged Endgame for a little bit because Endgame's forks also stopped it from actually getting anything good in, and it did even got one. It got one good bite, and according to Jake Ewert, it did not that bite did not even do anything. I listened to the Robocast on thing, and that didn't it didn't really kill Hydra either. It kind of just died on its own. So that fight was just a nothing fight other than that one good flip and some wedging. At least there's some driving thing. At least Whiplash was doing something for the first minute other than just like straight up trying to out push and failing.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll go on to the next fight now, which is Yeti versus Bite Force. Bite Force, who reclaimed its title and now looking to defend it. And Yeti, one of the best drivers in the sport with a circumcised drum spinner, looked to take it on in the box. So, yeah, what was your guys' thoughts on this?
Yeti should have won. That's all.
Yeti absolutely should have won. Yeti
Wait,
got robbed.
wait, what?
Bite
Yeti,
Force lost half its drive.
Is
Yeti
that
got flipped on
Yeti,
a broken fork. You telling me
Yeti.
that's Bite Force should have won damage?
I mean,
all right. Listen.
here,
Listen.
score it for me. Score it for me, then.
Okay. So let's look at damage. Yeti is working fine. Its weapon's fine. Its wheels are fine. It just got stuck on a fork that was like broken, and it was just spinning in place because it got stuck on the broken fork. So I would give it 2-1 damage because Bite Force did do that. All right, but Bite Force lost half its drive. Okay, so I just give Yeti in favor of damage and control. Yeti doing stuff with his forks is enough for it to get a point. And you kind of have to give Yeti aggression point by default. It is Yeti. Yeti smash. It tried to do the thing at least. Like everything is split until you reach damage, in which one bot lost half its drive and the other bot broke its fork.
So
I agree. Yeti won the fight. I don't know. I think I'd score it more along the lines of 2-1 damage Bite Force and then 2-1 both the other categories for Yeti. Because I mean, it got the fork in there, it controlled the fight, and it was being aggressive at the same time. And it got enough. It definitely got enough to do at least a point of damage because it took out half the drive. I think Yeti got robbed.
I don't think it would have out controlled. The fork did more stuff, but the fact that Yeti couldn't really do anything with that control other than just contest the pushing match just wasn't
Pushing.
enough. Because like what happened, what Bite Force did was it hit Yeti, and Yeti was just out of control. But when it started pushing with the fork, that's when it started to work. That's why I gave it the control point, because it actually successfully prevented Bite Force from doing something. But it didn't really do much with that. But it still gets it at least splits it for the 2019 judging category.
Yeah,
I mean, the thing is
I think. Hold on.
that
I think it was. I think the judging criteria though for 2019 was 3 points damage, 2 points control, and 2 points aggression. I think so. I don't think
That is
there's.
it. That is it.
So here's how I'd score it. I think 2-1 damage bite force.
But
Um,
why? But why? What did it do that was better than losing half its drive?
it mangled up the forks. It flipped Yeti over. It was also having trouble driving at the end.
That is not damage. Yeti was having
What?
drive problems because it was upside down. Yeti was having drive problems because I was Yeti that season. It wasn't really drive problems. It was just being stuck. That's not damage.
Although you it, here's the thing though. The judges could assume that that was damage and not just Yeti being Yeti because the fork was broken. And even if they did assume that was because the fork was broken, that's still damage on Bite Force's part because Bite Force damaged the fork.
Hence it getting 1 point. I like it's just you're just comparing. If you put Yeti in the box, like Yeti at that state at the end of the match, you put in the box, you put Bite Force at that state at the end of the box, and then you fight each other, Yeti would win because Yeti can move competently. Well, competently compared to Bite Force.
Yeah. Okay. What do you guys think about the quality of the fight?
Oh, it was a good fight. I put it in like it's a B tier fight. Seeing Yeti just fly around was fun. Yeti's just being aggressive is fun, and
I'll
other
keep it
than being
55th
really
Street.
angry.
You're going
That's right.
S. You're going S.
No, you see, it would be keeping it 55th Street if they didn't fuck the judging over, but they did, so it's an A tier.
All right then. Yeti versus Bite Forces and A tier. Personally, I'd say you get. Wait, you said? Did you say A or B spin? I forgot already.
I said I'll go A tier. It's
Okay.
good. I really liked it. It was fun to watch. It's more fun than Saw Blaze versus Endgame for sure.
Uh, personally, I'd give this a B tier just because it there wasn't a lot of like highlight moments in this fight, in my opinion. But I can see where you guys are coming from. All right. Next up, we got Saw Blaze versus Tombstone. And I like to call this Whiplash versus Tombstone 2.0, since Whiplash Sawblaze did more than Whiplash even did in the rematch. So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on this?
I really like this fight. But I have one major problem. It's just the way it ended. So I like Sawblade's controlling Tombstone. That was fun to see, and then he
Yeah,
got broken up by the pulverizer. Really unlucky, but I mean that's how Tombstone got free. I think I'm fine with that. But the fact that that Tombstone hit Sawblaze and that's how they just lost half their drive, or something like that, and that's like how they got taken out. It was just really disappointing. Like they Tombstone eventually teared into Sawblaze and did major amount of damage. I think Sawblaze said in AMA that that was more damaging than their uppercut fight. But the thing is, that happened after Sawblaze kind of just half died, and I think that one hit just kind of lessened it for me because it just didn't really tear into it. It kind of just killed it internally instead of externally, which is a little disappointing. But it's still really fun. I'd put it in B tier.
what do you got, Mantine?
B tier fight.
Okay.
That is my statement.
Yeah, I'd probably go B tier probably because this was probably just kind of like I didn't like how this ended. Because this was a dream match of mine to be honest going into the season. I was like, okay, Sawblaze is a tanky wedge bot basically, and Tombstone is the most ultimate horizontal spinner of all time. So, what would happen if these two clashed? And the answer is, here's my problem with main events like these, and I feel like with some main events, there's like one major question that they're looking to be answered. Like, take Minotaur versus Whiplash, for example. The main question they were looking to be answered is who's the better driver between the two? And then the answer was, we don't really know. So, I mean, and that's the same story with Sawblaze versus Tombstone. Who would win in this situation? Answer, we don't really know. So, yeah, I'll go B tier on this.
Oh shit. Alright, hold on, boys. I'm sorry, I gotta head out for a little bit.
Oh, alright.
before I leave, I'm going to leave you with one thing.
Okay.
And it's the Cobalt and Minotaur is an S tier fight. Thank you.
Yes, I agree.
Jesus. Okay, we're already going to put. I guess we're gonna put that fight in S already. Okay, so next up we got Whiplash versus Son of Waiachi, which was really hyped up by BattleBots for whatever reason. I know that Son of Waiachi has a large history on Comedy Central era, but I don't remember too much about any of Whip the Vasquez family's previous robots. But maybe I just have been, since I'm not huge on the Comedy Central era at all. So yeah, what is your thoughts on this fight, Spin?
I like this fight. Seeing Whiplash just get just to see those monster hits Sao did on Whiplash was fun. Whiplash flipping over Sao was a way to end the match. I guess it wasn't particularly good, but it was I won't say it was. Sorry, I think it's fine. I put it in like a C or D tier because like it was cool seeing Sal get good hits. See Whiplash tie up the score after I think Warrior Clan beat Whiplash, but it just wasn't as interesting. I think what happened. I think at the start like Whiplash or Sal, I forgot which one, got their box rush stopped in its tracks by the uneven floor. I
Yeah.
think for that I'd give it a B tier.
Hmm. Yeah, personally, I feel like just because also I was kind of weirded out by this because I just didn't like the way they executed the hype for this fight because what they did kind of annoyed me because like Matt Vasquez and Whiplash had like a total of like a freaking like 4 minute pit interview, and Son of Oyachi got like nothing. So that was kind of annoying to me personally. So yeah, you said D tier, right? Spin or C?
Yeah, I said D tier. Mainly because the floor getting in the way of the fight is really annoying.
Yeah, that is true. So I'd say this is a C tier fight. So I'll just do this. Okay, it's D. All right. Uh, next up, we got the fight that destroyed Oblivion's hopes and dreams: Bronco versus Bite Force. Yeah, this was a fight, I guess. I I kind of I was really hyped going into this fight because this was, in fairness, a dream matchup of mine because this was essentially the best flipper bot versus the best vertical spinner bot. So I was kind of excited to see the ground game. And you could see that Bronco was trying to get good ground game on Bite Force, but it ultimately ended up failing. So what is your thoughts on this, Spin?
I love this fight for two reasons. One, I now have a screenshot of Bronco getting under Bite Force. That's so funny. And two, I just I just like seeing Bronco get its ass handed to it, proving all those Bronco fans wrong,
Shout out to
and getting
Oblivion.
destroyed. Yeah, I just did not like how cocky the Bronco fans were at the time. So seeing it get destroyed was great. Also, just destruction in general is fun. It's just you have two like high-ranking bots just go at each other. It's fun to see.
Yeah.
It was really unfortunate what happened to Bronco that year, but I'm happy Bite Force won this specific bout. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Oblivion.
What tier would you give this, Spin?
Oh, that's right. We're tier listing. I give it C tier or B tier, one of those two.
Yeah. Personally, I feel like if Bronco just did a bit more, I'd say this is a B tier fight, but I think this is ultimately C tier because fight was mainly just Bite Force winning, and I mean, yeah. I do wish that this main event was. I think I did actually have Bronco for winning this one, but I wasn't like extremely cocky going into it. I was like, yeah, this fight could go either way, honestly.
I think I also did Bronco. I just did not want to be right.
Yeah. And I went for Tombstone versus Rotator in this race. I went for Rotator, by the way. Shout out to Rotator. So yeah, this was kind of the fight that made everyone realize that Tombstone is not invincible. Because when you look at previous Tombstone losses, Bombshell and Bite Force, Tombstone was kind of just Tombstone had reliability issues in Bite Force, and Bombshell was kind of just the chain. And also, if Tombstone didn't get hung up on its own chain, it probably would have won since Bombshell was smoking at the end of the fight. So, which is funny, but yeah, this fight ended up with Tombstone getting set on fire, which is great to see, and Rotator using some huge shots with its horizontal counter. So, what's your thought on this, Vin?
I put it on A tier for multiple reasons. Just it's just a really great spectacle. At that time, Tombstone was a monster, top of the S tier, just being the best. Even though Bite Force won, in 2019, I still would have put it in S tier above it. But like just seeing this fight, seeing a bot perfectly execute a wedge strategy against Tombstone, and it just not being lucky at all, just it being good and being good at driving and out driving Tombstone and out wedging it, it's just crazy. And seeing Tombstone burst into fire was also amazing. I love this fight so much. It is my favorite A tier fight.
Yeah. I feel like this is probably an A tier fight. I don't think it's the best A tier fight in my opinion, because actually, so here. Actually, yes, I would say it's the best A tier we've done so far. Probably. There could be one fight out there that I don't remember that could be A tier that's better than this, though. I don't remember. So, yeah, great fight, great driving by Victor Soto, and yeah, just great fight overall. So next up, we got Whiplash versus Witch Doctor. Uh, Fight between two and O's, and I was really excited for this fight mainly because Witch Doctor is my third favorite robot of all time. So seeing it beat a semifinalist that was Whiplash honestly just made me so happy. Like I was literally jumping in excitement seeing Witch Doctor give Whiplash a beating. So yeah, what was your thoughts on this, Finn?
I love this fight so much. At that time, Whiplash and Witch Doctor were my two favorite spots. My top five has changed a lot since then, but I still really love this fight. It's just so great to see Whiplash. Not Whiplash. So it's so fun to see. It's so great to see Witch Doctor finally do something like that's so great. It's finally prove itself after all this time. Season one, it took out Tombstone's weapon, but then got flipped. Season two, Red Devil fight, it getting ooted by Rex. Season three, massively disappointing. And to see its epic comeback story, like have its really have its really good moment in defeating the semifinalists in Whiplash was
Yeah.
so great to see. It's also destructive. It's also just great. It was close for a little bit. I think Witch Doctor kind of closed the gap in terms of how close it was, like kind of early in the fight. I would put an A tier because it was just so great to see. At that time, it was my two favorite bots, and I was so hyped for it, and I was not disappointed at all.
Yeah, this definitely cemented Witch Doctor as a veteran at this point because Witch Doctor, as Spin said, it has did subpar in previous seasons, and its opponents prior to Whiplash were pretty subpar too. You had Shatter, you had Captain Shredderator, so not the best lineup of bots, but Whiplash was a really great win for them. So yeah, I do. Personally, I'd say this is a high B, but I'll let Spin's vote be the deciding factor and go A.
Thank you.
Yeah. Uh, Next up, we got the rematch no one wanted, but we got it anyway, I guess. Hypershock and Bite Force Part 3, which was probably unironically the best Hypershock Bite Force fight, even though it's the one no one wanted. So, yeah, what do you got on this, Spin?
I would give it okay. Might be a hot take, but I give it S tier. It was so fun to see. It was great to
Really?
see. Yeah, I mean, this is like on paper, you don't want to see this for a third time. The first
Right.
time was close, but it, Hypershock just randomly died. The second time, it was just over too quickly. No one really wanted this, but it was just so shocking to see Hypershock actually put up a good fight.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Bite Force obviously won that one, but see it actually do something meaningful and actually put up a good fight. Hypershock is almost always a fun thing to see. Well, a working Hypershock that is. It zipping out, trying to outdrive, it trying to wedge and failing. The only downside is that it just was Bite Force again. Bite Force won again.
Yeah.
And Hypershock could not get back up after flipping, I think. I don't remember it that as clearly, but I do still love this fight dearly. It was just really fun to see Hypershock work against Bite Force, even if it didn't fully work, and even if it didn't win. I would put an S tier because it's just so fun to see, and it's so great to see Hypershock put up a fight.
I also got a hot take regarding this fight. Hypershock was, in my opinion, the closest spot to beating Bite Force this season.
You know my thoughts on Bite Force versus Yeti.
Oh yes. Yeah. Yeah. Personally, I can see where Spin's going with this, saying it's an S tier fight. I don't think it's S tier. I think it's A tier. But he's the. I'll
No,
just.
I'll let you gave me the swing on this one on the last one. I'll give you the swing on this one. I'll just go down to A, I guess.
Alright, sick.
Yeah.
All right, and next fight we got. Oh, I was actually pretty excited for this one. We had Death Roll versus Rotator, and this is like the fight you didn't expect to see because like you don't expect to see Death Roll at 3-0, even though his first two wins weren't that impressive, but the Quantum win was good, and the Rotator win was really good. But yeah, this was gonna be a fun main event overall. The thing I hate about this one is I accidentally deleted this episode, so I can't watch it anymore. Even though I like the part where Victor Soto was spying on Team Death Roll in the pits. So yeah, what's your thoughts on this, Spin?
Yeah. Wasn't Will Bales spying on Paul Ventimiglia in the pits in just the previous episode?
I think so.
I I love it when that happens. It's so funny to
Yeah.
see. But I really like this fight too. I mean, Death Roll doing its thing was great to see. I like seeing Death Roll go 4-0 was insane. You have a
Yeah.
bot that was picked apart by Captain Shredrator of all bots. It coming back and just dominating was so great to see. I also love it when an underdog, like a bot that like sucked in other seasons, just comes back and be good, be in the main event. That is something I love to see. I wish it happened more often. Just see underdogs get main events instead of like proven veterans facing another team for the third time or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, what do you think on grading? Because I really love this fight. Uh, Death Row just picking apart Rotator was great to see. I wish it was more even because I think Rotator's weapon just died too quickly for it to be even close.
Yeah.
And
Like I feel like while this fight in theory was had some great moments to it, it was also a pretty one-sided fight because once that blade was gone, Rotator couldn't really do much, and this was all Death Roll from there. Personally, I'd give this probably a B tier, I guess, since there were some fun moments, and Death Roll, as you said, did do the thing.
yeah, I mean, if I'm judging the fight, I would also give it a B. Probably below Sawblaze versus Tombstone,
Yeah,
but everything surrounding it, it being an underdog in the main event, Death Row finally going 4-0, it's just such a crazy thing to me that I would bump it up to A. But in terms of actually judging the fight, I would give it a B.
all right. Next up, we got ironically, probably Broncos' best performance of 2019 was against the bot that probably no one expected it to do well out of its four opponents. We got Bronco versus Huge, and Bronco came in with a very interesting attachment against Huge, which was kind of a unicorn horn, and got some amazing flips on it. This was a pretty fun fight, in my opinion. What's your thoughts on this?
Wait, wasn't this also the fight where Bronco pulled out its Tora cosplay?
I think so.
Got the little. Yeah, okay. So I like this fight. It being closer than the other ones was fun to see. Then basically every other Bronco fight was good to see. Um, there's a lot of decent damage. It was close-ish for a little bit.
Yeah,
I would put it in A tier because it's nice to see Bronco work, in season 4, or work okay. It was close to getting that partial huge Uda that Mammoth would eventually get. I would put, yeah, it was destructive. It was a bit of a driving match. It was fun to see. Laughing at Bronco's unicorn horn and Tora cosplay will never get old.
No, it will not. And I agree with your opinion. This is definitely an A tier fight, in my opinion. So yeah, now we go on to oh, Bronco versus Hydra. Okay, so hot take, D tier.
Wait, which tier?
D tier.
I give it more C. I was not as in love with this fight. I mean, just the concept of it being a changing of the guard for the flippers or something like that. It was a good idea. I like seeing the flip off. Seeing two weapon types collide was fun to see, but it just wasn't much of a fight. It just wasn't
Yeah.
really substance. It's just like the idea of the fight was better than the actual fight. It being a changing the guard is also great. Is also great, but just wasn't as interesting as other fights. I give it a C tier.
Here's the main thing that confused me that Bronco could have done but didn't, and if it did do it, it could have had a better shot at winning. One, why did it use the twangers against a bot that's not a spinner? And two, it should have gone with the Bite Force configuration it had, because that one should, in theory, have the most low ground between all the Bronco like wedge configurations. So I was kind of confused what Broncos' idea was, and it kind of didn't go out in their favor. Although I'm pretty sure that they were kind of just like, okay, we're at 0-3, we're not going to make the tournament, so just fuck it. Let's just put our bot in the default position. So yeah. You said this was C tier?
Yeah. Also, it's just a long season. I feel like they just want to go home. It was really
Yeah.
sad. That was a really sad season. Like at first, I was like, "Oh my gosh, Bronco 0-2, crazy." Free shipping got a win over Bronco, crazy. Bite Force beating Bronco, happy to see. But it just got sadder as it went
Yeah,
on
it
because you
just
see these legends pour their heart and soul into this, and then they kind of just lose like that. And like it's just, I could see this disappointment on their faces just as the season went on. It was
yeah,
just kind of sad. Like
yeah, it
I have a
was
lot of respect for those two legends.
yeah. You definitely start to like Bronco more once you see it get its ass handed to him in every single fight.
Yes, that is exactly it.
So yeah. All right, and next fight we have Cobalt versus Minotaur, and this is already going as S, as both Spin and Mantine have said this is an S tier. But do you have anything you want to add to this?
I mean, it was just a crazy fight. I have a lot of something that gets higher for me is both spectacle and just being high energy fight because you have two really massive spinners just going at each other. That's awesome. You have two great drivers, two legends. That's also awesome. But the hit that sent Cobalt flying was the one that cemented this as S tier. It was crazy. I just love this fight so much. I remember watching it when it aired. That was just amazing. I wish I could have seen it live, honestly, because I heard that hit was just awesome live. But the hits happened so fast the cameras couldn't catch it fully. So yeah.
Yeah. Here's my opinion on this fight, and this is kind of a hot take, but this fight gets treated like the second coming of Christ, and I don't like it. It's a good fight. I'd say it's an A tier, but I don't think it's S tier. Main
Well,
reason,
you have been outvoted.
yeah, I know. Main reason is because like the last like what 90 seconds or something was a pushing match or something. I don't fully remember. And there was
We needed those 90 seconds to cool down after what happened.
yeah, I guess. Yeah. But overall, 2019 season is finished. Overall, I do think that this is a good improvement after what we got out of the 2018 season. As you can see, there's a lot of 2019 fights that got an A and B. We got like 5 A tiers, 1 S tier, 2 B tiers, a couple C tiers, not a lot of D tiers, and not a lot of F tiers, so that's always fun. But finally, we got the 2020 season starting off with Tombstone versus Endgame. Endgame finally got Tombstone after 2 years of calling Tombstone out. We finally got it, and Bumpkus. So Yeah, this fight kind of just went with like two shots, one being the first shot and the second shot being endgame Uda-ing Tombstone. So yeah, what's your opinion on this fight?
I would put this in like C tier. I mean, it wasn't a long fight. It wasn't much of a fight. Tombstone just kind of
Yeah,
got hit twice. But I just love the spectacle of like Endgame went, I think 2-3 in the regular season, but like 3-3 if you include his win over Duck. Just upsetting, just massive upset. I think most people went Tombstone. I also went
yeah, I
Tombstone,
went
but
Tombstone.
seeing, yeah, seeing Endgame pull it off, like it called out Tombstone, and it actually did it 2 seasons later. Would not have done it any other season if I'm being honest. Maybe even this upcoming season, depending on which fight. But yeah, it's like this is just a crazy thing to see, and I love toaster rings. Like let me tell you, I put Bronco Duck in B tier. I love this fight. It just wasn't much of a fight. It didn't really go on for too long. Tombstone kind of got unlucky, and I think it's unreliable. And it got unlucky in terms of
Reliability.
reliability. Sorry, I kept saying unreliability. It just got unlucky there. I don't think its drive was working properly,
Yeah,
but
here I feel like if Tombstone's drive was working properly for the whole fight, I feel like Tombstone honestly would have won because as shown by Bloodsport and even Rotator, Endgame does not handle horizontals well. So
I I don't know about that because like the difference between Bloodsport and Rotator and Tombstone is just maneuverability. I mean, Bloodsport is so speedy, Rotator is well driven, and also kind of it's just a lot more maneuverable than Tombstone. They can be more calculated. They don't have to just go in for those monster hits and hope and pray that the other bot dies. In Tombstone case, it will most likely die, but it doesn't have as much strategy or driving ability as those two other bots. But I do agree. I think Tombstone would be able to win a rematch, depending on how well Endgame is in that fight.
yeah. All right. Next fight we got Hydra versus Witch Doctor. I was really excited for this fight because this was a dream match of mine going into the season, and we got it second episode. And yeah, just a very fun fight to see, including that very first flip. This is probably the fight that I was like, okay, Hydra is actually a top contender of a bot. Whereas when we went in the 2019 season, I was like, okay, it just got like gimme fights until it got Bronco. So yeah, what is your thoughts on this fight?
I mean, those were gimme fights, but wasn't I think Warhawk would have beat Hydra if it was working that season.
2018 Warhawk would have probably beaten Hydra.
2019 Warhawk working would have because
Yeah,
it actually got under Hydra. Just weapon just did not work. But
yeah,
I would say S tier. I love this fight. It's such a spectacle to see. The only reason why it's not higher is because there's two things that in this fight that went wrong. Witch Doctor's disc breaking. It prevented the fight from just being just destructive. It just really stunted Witch Doctor in this fight. So much so that we didn't really put up much of a fight. However, there's one problem with this fight. Hydra apparently should have been counted out. It was gone for 50 seconds. The only reason it did not get counted out is because the ref couldn't see through the smoke. I got this information from Kyle on Discord, apparently, on the UDA server. So yeah, I would say S tier because it is still a fun fight to see. Witch Doctor somehow making the fight really close despite uh, a broken weapon, and Hydra kind of just smoking out, and also flipping, smoking Witch Doctor around was so cool. It created a smoke screen, which kind of hurt the fight, but was also a spectacle to see. I love this fight so much.
yeah. This fight is an all out brawl. I love everything about this fight. Definitely agree with you. This fight was definitely keeping it 55th Street, going S tier all the way, baby. All right, and then
I just wish both bots worked.
yeah, and then moving on from what could debatably be the 2020 best main event, we have without a doubt the worst main event of 2020. As we got Gruff versus Hypershock. Oh god. Also, I hate 2020 episode 3 because I was like 3 and 4 in predictions, but 3 of the fights I got wrong, the bots were winning. So I ultimately was like a 6 and 1 record if they didn't all die. So yeah, I hated that episode overall. And this main event was pretty bad. Although I'm pretty sure this if there was no beta rotator controversy, that it wouldn't Hypershock versus Gruff probably wouldn't have even been the main event. So what's your thoughts on this?
Sorry, I was struggling to turn on my mic. Yeah, this the only reason this was the main event was because they wanted to milk the controversy. I think
Yeah,
the way they phrased the two fights in the description sounded like Beta versus Rotator was the main event. My theory is it was going to be the main event.
yeah,
They switched it around because they wanted to milk the controversy. But I this might be a contender for the worst fight here.
yeah.
I mean,
I
yeah, you have a little bit of Gruff kind of pushing around Hypershock, Hypershock kind of turning the tables. But the fact that Hypershock just died unprompted, even though it was winning, and Gruff not doing as much as it should, is just really It's just really annoying, you know.
yeah,
This fight was the reason Gruff got into the 2020 bracket, which was kind of annoying since it didn't really win. It kind of just
right. Yeah,
Hypershock team had died on them, and that was really sad to see. Because like the Hypershock team has always been struck with bad luck. 2019 was just so great to see Hypershock actually work, but failed to make the round of 16. And then you just go into this season, and that's so much sadder. Such a strong season, and then you start off with this.
yeah. It's I personally think this is worst main event. There is literally nothing in this fight I like at all. So, do you think this should be worst?
I mean, I like flamethrowers, but in terms of actual content, I would put this lower than Hypershock versus Bite Force because there is just less spectacle, and it is sadder to see.
Yeah. All right. So, next up we got Bloodsport versus Endgame. Two very ferocious spinners that got two amazing wins going into in their first fight. So yeah, I honestly had no idea who was gonna win this. I went Endgame, but I thought this fight would honestly go either way. So yeah, what was your thoughts on this fight?
This was a really fun fight to see. I thought Endgame was going to take it because they took out the horizontal in Tombstone, but Bloodsport's upset was so awesome to see because this was kind of a close fight. You have Endgame being aggressive, Bloodsport getting crazy hits in, and then Endgame started struggling, and then Bloodsport came in for more hits, and then suddenly Endgame was on fire. That was so awesome to see. Personally, I put this in A tier because it is close for a little bit, and then Bloodsport's damage starts to build up on Endgame, and then it obviously won. But I would give this A tier because it's so great. There's just so much going on in this fight. It's so fun to see.
I have a hot take. I'd actually give this main event a C tier because I honestly I don't remember much about this fight except there was like one hit and then Endgame struggled to even go after Bloodsport because I'm pretty sure Bloodsport clipped a wheel in the first exchange, I think. So it was just kind of hard for Endgame to get a hit in. But since it is a tie, we have to average it out to B tier. So yeah.
I think they talked about this in AMA once or on a podcast. But I think Endgame had some internal problem. It was not that they Bloodsport clipped anything. Is that just like that one internal problem kind of killed them? I
Oh,
think um, I think Endgame would win in a rematch.
yeah, it's definitely possible. All right, so next up we got the main event everyone thought would be a gimme. And now look where we are at now. So, Kraken versus Witch Doctor. Also, by the way, Kraken was robbed against Black Dragon. Don't at me.
I
Uh,
agree.
yeah. So yeah, both bots had an 0-1 start, and then they had a extreme brawl going after that their first win of the season. Definitely a fun fight to watch. What's your opinion on this fight?
Um, this is another fight where just everything surrounding it was so awesome. Like the Death Roll versus Rotator, it's so great to see Underdog get a main event. What kind of threw me off was Kraken was 0-1. It was an impressive 0-1, but it was 0-1.
Yeah.
Its other its history also not impressive. This being a main event should have tipped us off that it was an upset, if I'm being
Yeah.
honest. Especially since Kraken was made to fight four-wheel drive bots. Obviously, no one expected the discs to break again. But I did go Kraken because I did think it was just gonna control Witch Doctor and just avoid getting murdered by the spinner, which it mostly did. Witch Doctor did get one really good hit on the head, but that did nothing to affect the actual fighting of Kraken. So it did win the decision. I remember one of my friends said they thought Witch Doctor should have won, and I was just in shock and utter disbelief of
Yeah,
what
Witch
they.
Doctor didn't win that. It was
Yeah,
definitely Kraken. The way I would score it is probably damage 3-2 Witch Doctor, maybe? Because Witch Doctor was taking pieces off, but it also lost its like its balance on a spinner, so that should also be damage for Kraken's part. But I think say control and aggression should be both 2-1 for. Actually, you could also argue Kraken gets a sweep on control, maybe, but I think Kraken wins the decision.
yeah, I agree 100%. Like, I'm happy it was not even split. I'm happy they just gave it to Kraken because he deserves it so much because it
Yeah,
was so good. And that last decision made me so sad.
yeah. Yeah. So what tier would you give this fight?
Somewhere between A and B, I think.
Yeah, I'd probably give this fight an A2 because I feel like if there was just more like of actual like insane shots. Like for example, Hydra versus Witch Doctor. Like that first flip was amazing. This was kind of just like just a brawl out, but I still think this is A. This is probably A plus for me, I'd say, but yeah, it's still a good fight. Next up we got Whiplash versus Gruff, which I mean, I got the episode 7 and episode 6 main events mixed up, so yeah. Yeah, we got Whiplash versus Gruff. Gruff coming off of what we probably declare as the worst main event of all time, and Whiplash coming off of just getting bodied by Sawblaze. So, yeah, what were your thoughts on this fight?
I mean, this was just a gimme for like Whiplash because they wanted
Yeah,
Whiplash to get a win, obviously, because he is Whiplash. I mean, I just wish this fight was closer because like Gruff is a good bot. It's just I just don't know what happened with his control. It's just I just wish it did slightly better. Like this would be like even C tier if Gruff got like at least two good lifts in or just something interesting happened other than Whiplash got under Gruff and then
yeah,
just pushed him around. I will say it did do damage to Gruff's underside, but like that's kind of nothing really interesting happened. I guess
yeah.
I would
I,
give it like a D F.
I will say this is probably the first fight ever since like Hypothermia where Whiplash's spinner actually impressed me. Since Whiplash's spinner has never been like the most potent thing on Whiplash ever. It's always been the lifter, the driving of Matt Vasquez. But yeah, this the spinner did do well this fight, so yeah, I'll give it credit for that. Uh, Personally, I'd say this is I'd honestly say C tier fight because there's nothing like bad about this fight and there's nothing good about this fight. It's just like a mediocre fight. Like
No, I'd agree with C tier honestly.
if
Like
they
it
were
wasn't that bad.
yeah if it was like Gruff fighting literally anyone else and the same fight happened, this would not be a main event. All right, so next up, we got one of the most praised and overrated main events of all time. Uppercut versus Sawblaze. So,
Did you say overpraised and overrated?
yes, overpraised and overrated.
Because I 100% agree.
Yeah. So, there was a lot of great hits from Uppercut, in all fairness. Uppercut throwing Sawblaze to the rails, getting an explosion on Sawblaze, and some two nice kill shots on Sawblaze. But here's my personal problem with the fight. It's too one-sided. It's way too one-sided. Like I thought this would be like an absolute brawl between Sawblaze and Uppercut, and it turned out just be Uppercut literally just getting like this the like a 1 in 100 chance of getting that shot because Jameson like whiffed on a box rush, or not a box rush, but like a driving maneuver. So, what's your thoughts on this fight, Spin?
Like, I liked the fireball. That was so cool.
Yeah,
And like up afterwards, uppercut tearing apart Saw Blades was also cool. It just wasn't much of a fight. It just seemed like uppercut got kind of I mean, Saw Blades got kind of unlucky there with his box rush, and then up and he exposed a side, and then uppercut took advantage of that. But to say this is like the best main event or among the best is just a bit
yeah,
hyperbolic. I mean, you have that one really cool kill shot, but that was kind of it. That's kind of all that happened in the fight, really.
yeah. I do agree with you there. I'd say this fight is probably like a B tier in my opinion. Would you?
I would also give it like a B tier,
Yeah,
but like kind of lower than of the other B tiers. If I'm being honest, I put it below Saw Blazers' Tombstone.
yeah. It's definitely not a great fight by any standards, but still, there's still some great moments in it. I'll give it credit. All right. So next fight,
Oh wait, actually, hold on. I just want to mention, just uppercut throwing Saw Blaze like across halfway the arena and almost throwing it into the Uda zone was cool.
yeah, that was fun. If uppercut,
Like in if you sorry, go ahead.
no, you can go.
Like if you're just talking about like with the hit that was more impressive, obviously the fireball was impressive, but like that's just because they hit the fuel tank. Chucking saw blades was like much more impressive in terms
Yeah,
of actual
definitely.
damage and powers, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I feel like that the shot that threw Sawblaze to the wall was definitely like a much more impressive shot, but like I guess the fireball was more like of a spectacle shot, I guess.
The fight was all spectacle and no substance, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
all style, no substance. Uh, all right. Next fight, we got Scorpios versus Tombstone. Now, I got a ton of shit for predicting Scorpios in for this fight, and then I get it right. God, I love being right on main events that are quote unquote too one sided. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on this one?
I also predicted Scorpios to
Let's
win.
go! Scorpion,
Yeah, I,
Scorpion.
I, 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 uh, I almost always root for the underdog, but in this case in particular, I just genuinely thought Scorpion was
Yeah,
gonna win. It
same.
is made to be Tombstone, you know? Like
Yeah.
it's got the way. It's controlling. It's well driven. I was pretty sure they're gonna pull out the upset, and I was right. But it was a lot closer than I thought it was gonna be.
Oh, yeah, it was an
I,
absolute war in that fight. I loved every single shot that was dished out. It was pretty fun watching Tombstone just lose a wheel because I just realized, besides Bite Force, we've never seen Tombstone lose a wheel to anybody in Battlebots before. And seeing Tombstone lose its wheel due to kinetic energy is really great in my opinion. I just love seeing that.
yeah, this is just a really fun fight to see. The only like downside was, of course, that count out. I
Yeah,
feel bad for Ray because he did not realize what was happening. Something about like the referee, I think like glitched out or something. They couldn't clearly understand that they were being counted out. I don't think they should have been counted out because I think crab walking should like still depending on how well you crab walk, it should still be a mode of transport, especially since Tombstone was crab walking well. I don't think that would have affected the outcome. I still think Scorpios would have won a decision, or it would have KO'd Tombstone eventually. I
yeah,
just wish it was count out was better, but I would still put it in like S tier.
yeah, same.
Like this is so fun.
Yeah. In regards to the count out, um, I have a theory that the main that Tombstone was counted out right when it got into the corner, like when it lost its wheel, it was getting counted out. And they kind of just did a little like TV magic editing to make it like seem like Tombstone was getting counted out when it was in the corner and like fully moving. So I kind of have mixed feelings about Tombstone being counted out. I do feel like Scorpios would have won regardless, so I don't care that much. So Yeah.
You know, there's something dumb I heard on Reddit or I think Discord, something like that. I heard someone say that Tombstone would have won a split decision had it not
No,
been
it
counted.
would not. No, it
It
wouldn't
would not.
have. It would not
Yeah.
have. You could. Tombstone barely won on damage, even. Like, that was. And then Scorpios wins essentially everything else, except maybe like
Yeah,
an aggression point.
that's what I'm saying.
So, next fight, we got Copperhead versus Black Dragon. We got my predicted 2020 champ versus Green Square's predicted 2020 champ. And Copperhead bodied. So, yeah. And also, this was probably, besides Scorpios versus Tombstone, the hardest main event I had time predicting, in my opinion, because both bots were kind of just like high tier bots, like B plus tier bots at the time. Like, really had no idea how to go, but it turned out to be a really big slugfest for Copperhead, getting some great shots. But at the second halfway point, it was kind of just dying down and even getting pushed around by an upside down Black Dragon. So, what are your thoughts on that?
This was a really fun fight to see. Just like Copperhead throwing around Black Dragon was so impressive. I'm
Yeah,
so happy Copperhead worked well that season. And like I think I know what happened. Copperhead, I believe, kind of overheated in there during the match, and its weapon was starting to go down. But the reason why the weapon didn't fully go down was because there is an unstick. I think Black Dragon Copperhead got stuck together, and during the unstick, Copperhead cooled down. At least that's what I heard, either from AMA or podcasts. But yeah, Black Dragon, I don't think would have turned the match around because their weapon was also dead.
yeah,
But it might have been closer had the unstick not been there.
right, yeah, definitely. I feel like this fight was kind of just like a weird one because of how Black Dragon was just pushing it. It was just kind of funny to watch an upside down bot win a pushing battle. So yeah, what tier would you give this, Ben?
I don't know. This was a fun fight to see, but I don't really know in terms of tier. What do you think?
I'd probably give this like a mid B, because while this is a fairly one-sided fight, there's still a ton of great moments in this fight, ton of nice hits, neat shots, and a fight that went the distance, which you gotta love.
Yeah, I'm gonna say high B too. I might be leaning towards A little bit because like I find when a vertical spinner throws around and sends a bot in the air so much more impressive than a flipper because a flipper is built to do that, and though both are really fun spectacles, I just like it when like a vertical spinner does it, especially when it's like a drum bot that's so small and just so like not like quite the in the S tier ranks yet. Doing that to a bot that's already so highly ranked is so awesome to see. Also,
Yeah.
this was a grudge match, which is fun.
Yeah, it was fun just seeing because Copperhead kind of just called out Black Dragon, and they were like, "Okay, yeah, let's just have that fight be a thing," which was fun to see. But now, finally, we have Valkyrie versus Whiplash. Valkyrie at its greatest run ever, getting a 2-0 record, and Whiplash at kind of a weak start, having a 1-1 record. Although it lost to one of the best bots in the season, and then lost to one of the worst postseason bot, beat one of the worst postseason bots in the season. So very weird season for Whiplash, all in all. So yeah, what were your thoughts on this fight?
Ah, I didn't really like this fight if I'm being honest. Like, it was kind of just Whiplash grabbing Valkyrie and just not letting Valkyrie do anything. But it was just a bunch of like Whiplash not letting Valkyrie do anything. It's kind of just pushed it around and just I was kind of bored during this fight if I'm being honest because I watched it on Discovery Plus. I kind of skipped through like parts of it because I was just not fun seeing Whiplash get bodied like that. I'd give it like a D tier, like low C if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I'd say this is like a C. I'd probably say the second match is better than the first match
Oh, it is a lot better.
because Valkyrie got some great hits in the second match. So I'd probably say C tier There's nothing special in this main event. There's nothing great. Uppercut versus Hydra should have been the main event. I don't know why it wasn't. So, well, whatever.
If I had to guess, it was because Uppercut did not. No, what? Hold on. What Valkyrie didn't even put up a fight? Why was an Uppercut in the main event?
Yeah.
I think maybe because both bots weren't performing like tippy top because I don't know what happened with Uppercut, but Hydra got stuck on the floor seems at some point, and Uppercut just
Yeah.
did not capitalize at all. It was just a
Yeah.
bunch of Hydra throwing them and them laying on their spinner. But yeah, Uppercut versus Hydra definitely should have been the main event.
Yeah. So that is the end of our tier list. We got a lot of great picks in the and 2020 overall for the main events was kind of just like inconsistent in terms of quality in my opinion because you have some absolute bangers like Scorpios versus Tombstone, Hydra versus Witch Doctor, Kraken versus Witch Doctor, and then you have some absolute stinkers like Hypershock versus Gruff. Even fights like the two Whiplash main events were kind of weak. But yeah, this all in all was an alright season in terms of main events. We have, as for our best main event, we have Minotaur versus Tombstone. I honestly, there's only one main event I know that's coming soon that I feel has a shot at besting Tombstone versus Minotaur, but it's a slim margin.
I mean, I might like maybe lean Scorpios versus Tombstone if you're determining the best, but like 9 times out of 10, I would be like Minotaur versus Tombstone probably because
Yeah.
it is just more of a spectacle.
Now, Witch Doctor and Endgame will be fighting in episode 6 as confirmed as a main event. So, I do think that has potential to be the best main event, but I thought the same about Endgame versus Hydra, so who knows at this point.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that main event, but if I'm being honest, I'm more excited for Scorpios versus Yeti. That looks fun. I think we got a little snippet of it. That looks fun. Yeti is aggressive. Scorpios is well driven. I'm more excited for that one if I'm being honest than just two vertical spinners slamming into each other.
Yeah, I feel like Yeti versus Scorpios would be a big driving match, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine just Yeti just going in there trying to smash the vertical spinner and like Scorpius does have those like kind of the kind of fork things that are meant to block four-wheel drive from getting to the spinner, like Switch Doctor did.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how effective those will be against Yeti because they are playing the ground game also, or they could just go straight up drum first. I think they could put the forks up while going forward, so it's like kind of 50-50 what they can do. I'm more
Right.
excited for that one. I do think it's going to be more of an even bout than Endgame versus Witch Doctor.
As for the worst main event of this competition, we have Hypershock versus Gruff. I don't think we'll ever get as lower as a main event like that ever, unless they decide to have like freaking two like insanely weak bots be in a main event, which I don't see that happening. But yeah, that is our main event. I hope you guys enjoyed. Please subscribe to the channel. Please watch my other podcast, What If Podcast. The next What If Podcast will take place in 2 weeks, where we actually have a special guest appearing for the first time in What If. So be sure to be tuned for that episode coming in 2 weeks. And yeah, anything you want to add, Spin, before we sign off?
I think Endgame versus Hydra was more disappointing than Gruff versus Hypershock.
Well, I mean,
But it's not worse.
I didn't
It's just
have.
more disappointing.
Oh, I definitely agree with you there because I had no high hopes for Gruff versus Hypershock whatsoever. I thought that was like just gonna be, oh, Hypershock's gonna body this thing and it's just gonna be, which didn't happen. But I mean, it's still, I didn't have high hopes for that main event. Is basically what I was saying.
I remember voting for Gruff because I thought they were going to be able to control Hypershock well. They did okay, but Hypershock was still winning before it died.
Yeah. But yeah, that is gonna end it for this episode. Well, not this episode, but this podcast. Be sure to subscribe. If you want to see another tier list of me ranking fights, you can go ahead and check out my